At the time that Governor Engler was about to leave, and he came up with the idea about establishing an endowment, we didn't know what we would call it. They called it at the end the ConnectMichigan Alliance. But it was a way to say, how can we develop an infrastructure of funding that can support the volunteer infrastructure in our state? And so at that time, when that conversation was happening, Kyle was the head of the Michigan Community Service Commission, and Sam was at the head of the Michigan Nonprofit Association. And while Sam was there, both the Volunteer Centers of Michigan and Michigan Campus Compact were housed within that organization. And so the leaders of those two respective agencies, it was Amy Smitter toward the end, who was at Campus Compact, and for the Volunteer Centers of Michigan, it was Judy Timowitz. And so they all came to the tables to say they all helped fundraise in their own specific ways. There was a leadership team brought together to see how we could raise the money, and people took time from their organizations. So Kyle and Sam took time from running their individual organizations, or did it above and beyond what they were doing all the time, to say, how can we think about creating a new entity? And as I said earlier, each one looked at, what is it within my agency that might better sit here than as opposed to sitting within my agency now? Because sometimes programs come to agencies just because you're the agency that makes the most sense at the time that the program is being developed. And so I think that's what we were trying to do, is to say who should be part of that. And both Campus Compact at that time and the Volunteer Centers of Michigan, and from the commission perspective, Michigan's Promise at that time, seemed all to be perfect things that each of the entities could give up. They still would be supporting their various streams, but this would allow a more cohesive work about how these organizations happened. And so they came together. And we were also very fortunate that they were very smart. The guys are smart to say, we're going to create a board that represents all the partners. So it isn't just a brand new board. It's a board that brings with it history and sort of a point of view of the original sort of signers of this little declaration that we have here. And so I think that gave power, I think, and perspective to that board to realize what it was doing and what it would try to do. And so during the first year or so is when another group outside said, well, we're interested in the League, and that was the Learning to Give and how we bring that, and that's how the League Michigan came to be part of the ConnectMichigan Alliance. So about 2 years, maybe about 3 years, and I'm trying to think, Sam, who had been at the head of the Michigan Nonprofit Association now for 10 years, decided, oh, isn't it great to be young, and that I want to take off a year and a half and travel the world? And I'm saying, oh, yes, take me with you. I can carry your luggage, kind of a thing. But he was at a point in time, I think, that he wanted to step away. He felt that he had done, I think, 10 years is a long time to head an organization that had really been very young when he had taken over. And so I think his ability to think about that, and I think his friendship with Kyle allowed them to think strategically, and the boards. I think there were people on the boards, too, that had a willingness to listen to their sort of proposition, that maybe the time was right to bring the ConnectMichigan Alliance and the work that they were doing, because there were still things that they were doing that almost seemed to be the same thing. There was public policy that both did, and so shouldn't the public policy be all in one place? Or the support of volunteer engagement, because that was part of the mission that M&A had at one time, and actually they had taken it out of their mission statement when the ConnectMichigan Alliance was formed, so that people wouldn't sort of confuse things. But I think they had a time to think about it. They were willing to say, I think this could work. And so another task force we love task forces in Michigan. We created another task force composed of their leadership and also respective members of the boards. And at that time, there were people from the Community Service Commission board and also the M&A board to say, and the M&A board at that, and also the ConnectMichigan Alliance board too, because there were 3 of them, to say, how do we think about this? And so they did a study, they worked with each other, and it was felt that the time was probably right